All right, greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Dorn. We've got another guest on with us today, Matt Dixon of Southwest Region Bracketology. I don't know why we're bringing him on for Southeast Conference Day, but Matt, do you want to let us know how long you've been doing bracketology and what got you into this nerdiest of the sciences?
So I've been doing this for a long time. I go back to the CBS Sportsline message board days and
Oh my.
talking bracketology with a couple of guys there. That's probably around 2009, 2010. Uh, why got into it? I was just curious. I'm a fan of New Mexico. We were just finally starting to get turned around under Steve Alford at that time. And I remember back in 2005, I was like, why does everyone have us out when we're like 25 and 6? I'm like, oh, there's this thing called strength of schedule. So I learned a lot since I started this. I was actually the 2012 bracket matrix champ. So I learned pretty quickly, and I've been doing it ever since. So excited to be on with you guys.
At least we have one Matrix champ in our midst. I don't think I've ever come all that close, but
It
I
was a
think
lot smaller back then.
yeah. I think I've been in the Matrix since like 2009, 2010, somewhere in that range. And it's funny you bring up New Mexico because I think was it 2013 or 2014? I was going to bat for them as a possible one seed, and that's probably what screwed me in the
Don't
Matrix.
don't don't remind me of 2013. That was terrible. I was there.
uh, Well, on that note, let's fire up the old spreadsheet. Like I said earlier, it is SEC day, and we'll get that going here. In case this is your first time with us this week, just a quick rundown of what's on here. Over here are our current overall seeds for the teams that Torvik's TourneyCast gives at least a 98% chance of making the tournament. I think for all six of these, it might be 100%. Maybe Kentucky's 99%, but they're all in the clear. We will come back to them shortly. This percentage here is what TourneyCast says each of these teams needs to get in. So even as the 11th right now SEC team, it says it's basically 50-50 that Missouri's going to get in. We've mostly been looking at teams in like the 3 and 4% range there at the end. This number here, right below WAB, that's the official NCAA wins above bubble. Everything below that is Torvik projections. This number here at the bottom of the W's column is based on the projected wins there, and we can update that as we go. That is what their WOB would be roughly heading into conference tournaments. You can see what it is: win out, lose out. Our buddy Tony Natochi pointed out we should like put it in so that it's like what it's actually projected, and that had been what I was doing. I just never actually pointed that out. So even though this would be a 0.55, Ken Palm and Torvik both say that Auburn should win that game, so we're giving them the W there. So this is what their projected WOB would be at the end of the year. Before we get into the bubble teams, let's circle back to Alabama. Curious what you guys are planning on doing with Alabama as far as the Bediako situation goes. The NCAA has said they can't like officially vacate the wins, but also the committee has said they will consider Alabama's roster as is. So I think they might potentially disregard the 3 wins they got with Bediako in the lineup. At that point, their WOB would drop from 13th to around 25th. I don't know. I'm curious. I hope they keep winning for the next couple of days because I want them to be in the conversation when the reveal happens next Saturday. But what are you guys thinking on Alabama? Graham, you go first.
Well, we were actually on with Roll Tide Rewind last week, and I had them 14th overall at the time. They went on the road, destroyed Mississippi State, and now I have them 17th. So I think that gives you an indication of what I've done with Alabama. I agree with you, Kerry. I think those 3 games it's not even like they're being targeted by the committee. It's more so the committee has to treat the team in front of them and use their basketball judgment. And if they don't have Bediako, they're got to look at what's happening from then. Like I don't think it's a huge drop off, but do I think his play was potentially enough to earn a win or two in there? Yeah, I do. So I think it's more fair to put Alabama where we all have them, which is 17th or 18th overall, as opposed to maybe an argument in their resume that they should be a 4 seed.
Matt, what are you thinking with Bediako?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go as far as Graham is saying they're going to discount all three wins, but they're going to discount it some. It's going to depend on what they do after Bediako, and I think they're going to treat it just like an injury and see who's available the rest of the season, how they perform the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we've said many times, like, yeah, the committee factors in injuries, but they usually only really harp on a couple. I do think this is such a public one that they're more likely to harp on this than like I don't think they're going to throw out Kentucky's win over St. John's because they had Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quaintance at the time. I think this is a different situation, and I don't know. I don't know if the committee's getting any sort of, mandate from the NCAA to maybe penalize them a little bit. But I don't. It's a mess. But like I said, I hope they're in the mix for a 4 seed a week from now, so that we can at least force the committee to say something about them. But they're going to get in anyway. Even if you throw those wins out, they're still solidly in the field. So let's focus on these bubble teams. 5 of them here today. All 5 of them projected to dance at the moment. I highlighted Oklahoma games just so I remembered to point out that all 5 of them do play the Sooners. So if Oklahoma keeps doing its thing and loses all of those games, better off for the entire SEC getting an 11 bid situation. But let's start with Auburn here, 86.3%. I think we all have them in like the 8-9 seed range. If they go 5-2, they would finish well clear of the bubble. Graham, you said you think they're probably going to lose both of these games to Mississippi State and Kentucky. I'll let you take the wrath of what does Auburn even call itself? I mean, the Tigers, but why do you think they're going to slip up there?
Well, first off, I just don't think Auburn's playing that well right now. So let's start off there. Besides that, Mississippi State really isn't the worst basketball team, right? Like it's almost like they've been
What
so
a
far out of
compliment.
the picture all year that we kind of forget they're actually like kind of decent. That's still a quality win if you go to Starkville and win. I just think it's a rough stretch. Not only has Auburn been losing recently, they're about to go to Arkansas. If they weren't already feeling bad about themselves, I think they might be feeling really bad about themselves coming out of Fayetteville. So I just think it's a bit of a bad stretch for them to be going into Starkville and then come home against the Kentucky team that has actually been really good on the road. Kentucky has been arguably better on the road than they've been in Rupp Arena. I think if Auburn loses both of those games, it gets really interesting really fast for Auburn's tournament chances.
So I'm going to just erase those. Let's assume they lose the next 4 and they drop to 14-14 overall. Even if they win 2 of those last 3, they would finish with a slightly positive wins above. They'd be 16-15 overall. And that's just, I mean, Matt, you mentioned earlier this little thing called strength of schedule. I mean, they played games away from home against Arizona, Michigan, Purdue. There was another one in there. They played 4 of the 10 best teams in the country away from home, lost them all. That's why they're 14-10. What do you think, Matt, that Auburn needs to do down the stretch to get in, or do you think they're already basically a lock?
I wouldn't say a lot. If they have that scenario that you show and they go 2-5, they're probably not getting in. I'd say 4-3 to be a lock. 18-13 and 9-9 in the SEC sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
3-4 at 17-14. It probably depends on what they do in the SEC tournament.
I can get behind that. Yeah, I mean they're certainly their wob would be good, even at 3-4. That would be a better wob than any team that got left out last year. Obviously, they could lose a little bit more if they lose right away in the SEC tournament, but what they would be at that point 8-10. So maybe they're playing on Wednesday. I don't know. I got to figure out the conference tournament schedule and when the committee stops caring about games. But we keep going back and
Yeah,
forth. It's like lunchtime on Thursday, right? Somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I think the concern I have for Auburn, if it goes the way you're looking at, you would look at their win above bubble rating and think, yeah, they should be in. I'm not so sure on that number. I think that's still in bubble territory. Like, yeah, it's a game above, a little bit more than a game above. We haven't seen a team left out there, but it doesn't mean we couldn't see one left out of. What I'd be afraid of if I was an Auburn fan in that scenario is just our overall quad 1 and 2 record. So many chances to pick up quality wins. And you mentioned they played Arizona, they played Michigan. They didn't play those teams all that well. Those were not particularly competitive games. We saw what the committee did last year with Louisville. They said, yeah, you played some top end teams. You were not competitive when you played top end teams. It's one thing to reward a team for a strong strength of schedule. It's another to say, yeah, really strong strength of schedule, but you were not competitive when you had the opportunities. So I think if Auburn ends up having such a poor Q1/2 record, it really could come back to bite
Yeah, I could see them getting that. The Louisville treatment, as you always love to bring up now. All right, Texas A&M, who has become mighty bubbly in a hurry, and they have a not a horrible backloaded schedule, but a tough slate to the finish line. Um, Tornycast says they have a 92.6% chance of getting in. I think that's pretty generous. We've pushed back against several of these Tourneycast numbers so far this week. I think that's way too high. If they go, what do we have them here? 5-2, even that only gets them to 2.5 wins above bubble. They could easily lose that game at Oklahoma. They could easily lose the home game to Kentucky, and then they are smack dab on the bubble. They could even drop these games to Texas and LSU. I mean, they're a sketchy team. I forget who it was the other day that was saying like they go through stretches where nobody can make a layup and other days when the entire roster turns into Steph Curry. So we'll see what the Aggies decide to do. But what do you think they need to do the rest of the way to get in? Matt, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, I look at that schedule and it's fraught with landmines. You highlighted a lot of those. I mean, there's no gimme games. Even at LSU is not easy. Uh, I'm gonna probably say it has to be because they didn't do a whole lot in the non-conference. It's probably got to be they got to get at least to 1 or 2 wins above bubble. I don't. I'd say 4-3, 5-2 is probably where they need to be at, and that's a tough stretch.
Yeah. Graham, what are you thinking on A&M? Because I think that was the first text you sent me this morning is that A&M's all of a sudden looking like a true bubble team.
Yeah, I think if they do win 4 games in this stretch, probably okay. And one thing that really could help A&M, even more so than Auburn. Auburn has a terrific road win at Florida, but A&M went on the road and beat 3 tournament teams. Now they were not elite wins. That's where I think Texas A&M could get in trouble. They have 3 road wins over tournament teams, but no wins over what I would consider to be an elite win, which is a road win over a top 7 seed, a home win over a top 3 seed, or a neutral court win over a top 5 seed. I think that could become a sticking point for the committee where they're trying to see who's that great team that you've beaten at a location that we really respect. So I think if they go 4-3, they're probably in the clear. If they go 3-4, could be trouble for the Aggies.
I know that conference record doesn't matter, but they are 7-4 right now. If they go 4-3 the rest of the way, they'd be 4 games above 500. And we saw the committee put some 6-12 SEC teams in last year. I kind of think just that will almost be enough, even though they're to your point earlier, Matt, their non-conference schedule was kind of a joke. Their best win was at Pittsburgh. That's not doing much for you this year. And Graham, I can't. We're like 35 episodes into this. That's the first time you've defined your elite wins. That'd be like if we went through the mock and Dave never talked about effective record. This is crazy town. Let's move over to Georgia, another, I think, true bubble team who really didn't do much in non-conference play either. I don't even remember what their best win was. I know they lost to Clemson. Home win, semi-home win over Cincinnati, neutral win over Xavier, at Florida State. Like, there's nothing there. And they haven't even gotten really any quality road wins unless you count at Missouri or at LSU as a particularly quality road win. But right now they are semi safely in. I think I have them at 42 overall. They do have a positive wins above bubble. If they go 3-4 the rest of the way, they would slip slightly to right in that danger zone of where the Mountaineers finished last season. But were there any bid thieves last year? I don't even remember. Like 2 years ago is when there were like 6 of them. So the only year that we've really talked about wins above bubble this extensively, there really weren't bid thieves, correct?
I think last year's story was more so there were bubble teams that ended up winning their conference tournaments, so they didn't really become a bid thief at the end of the day. So I look at Georgia and I have some pretty serious concerns about what we're seeing there. At Oklahoma is an incredibly important game for Georgia. If you go ahead and make that one a win,
Got it.
that dramatically changes their outlook.
Yeah.
They go to 1.71 if they win that game against Oklahoma. All of a sudden, you're looking at likely making the tournament. But if you take that back away, they're right in that West Virginia territory as far as wins above bubble goes. And I don't like their wins. Whereas West Virginia had a ton of terrific wins, I do not like the wins that the Bulldogs have on their record. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think 4-3 probably gets the Bulldogs in, and 3-4 likely misses regardless of what their wins above bubble score is.
Yeah. It's about where I'm at. Matt, where do you have Georgia overall right now, and what do you think? Same thing, 4-3, they're probably in.
Yeah, I have them at 39 right now. I just don't like the way they're playing recently. I mean, we saw them get, I mean, it's Florida, but they got hammered by Florida on Wednesday, and they've lost 4 of 5. I agree that 4-3 probably gets them in, but it's not a lock just because the committee loves to leave out teams with a poor non-conference strength of schedule, and theirs was in at the hundreds.
The
But
one thing Georgia could really get to their benefit from an old school resume standpoint is their quad 1-2 record actually is pretty nice. So if you're just looking at the numbers, you're like, yeah, generally they won most of the time they played quads 1 and 2. That could come to their advantage if we're getting down to the final bubble teams and they're just looking for who wins most of their games against decent teams.
Yeah. I like the non-conference schedule point that Matt made there. I feel like I don't ever pay too much attention to strength or non-conference strength of schedule until it gets like down to the nitty-gritty and I'm looking for a reason to keep out a particular bubble team. But I just like in the back of my head, I've just been feeling like, man, Georgia didn't do anything. They need to prove something, and they really haven't all conference play. So yeah, I think I agree. 4-3, they're probably in, but I wouldn't even that would get them theoretically to 1.7 wins above bubble. I don't know if that locks them in or not. Especially since we've been talking about Miami, Ohio so much. And if they take one loss down the stretch, they'll, I think, also be at 1.71 or something right around there. And they would be smack dab on the bubble. Texas has a brutal remaining schedule. They barely are above bubble right now. They should win these home games against LSU. You would hope they can beat Oklahoma at home. All the other 4 were road games against Oklahoma. But if those are the only 2 they get, I think they're definitely getting left out. Even if they beat, let's give them, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the number, but let's say they pick up a nice win instead of, I don't think at Missouri does all that much for them. Does the same for their wins above bubble, but I think a win at A&M would do more for their resume for sure. But what do you think Texas needs to do? Because unlike A&M and M and Georgia, they actually do have, a couple of marquee wins on their slate. Graham, you go first on Texas here.
Yeah, I think this might be enough. Exactly what you have here. And I think it kind of gets into that. To me, what the committee is mostly looking for is just what's your raw score? It's not necessarily how you rank in wins above bubble. I think they're looking for did you generally play at or above the expectation we would expect of a bubble team? And if they're sitting there at a 0.51, if they pick up a win in the SEC tournament, I think they're probably in, mainly because they have such great wins. And that's something that other teams in the bubble, you compare them to Georgia, certainly won't have. So I think the Longhorns, for them more than any other team here, just being positive and wins above bubble on Selection Sunday could be the difference.
Yeah. Matt, you go ahead on the horns.
yeah, I'm going to agree with Graham. I think what you have laid out there, 3-4 with a win at A&M, gets them in. If they get swept by A&M, since they already have a loss to them earlier in the season, start comparing them next to each other. Does the committee look at head to head? But Graham's right. They're excellent wins at Bama, home against Vanderbilt. That gets them a little bit of leeway. And I think 18-13, 9-9 in the SEC, which is what 3-4 would get them, would probably get them there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're going to be talking about Texas right on the bubble again, aren't we? Let's go to Missouri here. Also in right now, and as far as wins above bubble is concerned, they're the second best of this group, but their overall resume, I don't think reflects that. If they go 2-5 down the stretch, they would end up with a positive wob. I don't think that would be enough, though. I think they probably need to at least like get the home win over Arkansas. Matt, you can go first on the Tigers. What do you think they need to do the rest of the way?
Yeah, I just don't see the marquee wins yet, and I think that's kind of what's holding back. They do have a win, 2 wins in Quad 1A, but yeah, I think 3-4 is a good mark for them. I think they just need to pick up something that looks like an elite-ish type win. Maybe, like you said, the Arkansas game. Maybe it's the Tennessee game at home. I think I need one more of those to be good, but 3-4, 1 win above bubble. It's borderline, but probably still in.
Graham, go
I
ahead
think
on
Missouri's
Missouri.
another team that has some really nice wins, which should complement the resume very well if they end up with a positive wob. That said, I do think Missouri, just looking at that final stretch, it does have a lot of challenging games, but it also has some pretty winnable games. You get Tennessee at home, Texas at home, Arkansas at home. Those should be, for a tournament team, those should be wins. They really should. Those are tough games, but they're not really hard games for a tournament team. So I think you look at that schedule that Missouri's playing. I think they're going to play themselves in or out one way or the other. Either they're going to get enough wins against tournament teams that will be sitting there on Selection Sunday, being like, yeah, of course they've done enough, or we'll look at it and say, no, they had too many opportunities. They just didn't do enough. I kind of feel like this one's going to be cut and dry by the time we get to Selection Sunday.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, like to your point, you've always said that, road wins are big and you should be able to win at home. And they have 4 home games remaining against what are at least currently projected tournament teams. Got to go at least 2-2 in those. And, if you don't win at Arkansas, oh well. I mean, that'd be a great feather in the cap to have. That probably would arguably be even better than their previous win at Kentucky, better than their home win over Florida. But yeah, I think to Matt's point, they could use at least one more stamp. Is that what Anthony was saying the other day with Wisconsin beating Illinois? Like you want to just get that last stamp on the resume, a piece of gold if you're Rocco. But yeah, I think 3-4 would get them close. I don't know that it would get them in though. Again, a team that just did nothing in non-conference play. Their best win, home win over Minnesota. Their second best win was what, at Howard on opening night. Like, oh my god, that's abysmal. So yeah, I don't even know if 10-8 and SEC play would be enough for them at that point. But let's wrap up for now. I've enjoyed this week of digging through the WOB. Never really got this much into the minutia of it. Maybe we'll bring it back again in a couple of weeks. I don't know. Some couple of good games tonight. So if you're out there, take care. Enjoy the hoops.